CNN's primetime viewership dropped on Friday to 335,000 average total viewers from 8 to 11 p.m. This was below Newsmax's viewership, which received 357,000 average primetime viewers.
The network also landed behind Fox News and MSNBC. On Friday night, no CNN show rated above 300,000 viewers. This all comes 2 days after CNN's town hall with Donald Trump last week, which has drawn widespread backlash. The network also trailed Fox News and MSNBC, which averaged a total of 1.44 million and 1.08 million viewers, respectively, during the same time slot.
So these numbers are always a little confusing because there's the overall numbers and then there's the key demo, which is what, 25 to 50?
To 54.
Yeah, to 54, yeah. Which is that number is obviously lower because it's a lower proportion of the overall total. That's the number that matters a lot to advertisers. So it has to do, so if they're doing it really well in that demo, they still might be making money. Mm-hmm. Obviously the overall number is more relevant, I think, when you're talking about Fox's numbers because their audience on average is older than the other cable news networks. So they might, and now Tucker, who has exited, was the Fox host who did have a significant number of young people watching. So it's interesting to follow the numbers and how they're all going. CNN did get, what, 3.3 million overall for the town hall, which was a sizable boost over how that hour usually performs, although nothing like how the town halls with the Bidens and Trumps and Bernies and et cetera did in the fervor of election season. Now, you would expect those numbers to go up if they're doing town halls closer to the 2024 election.
Yeah, so in October of 2020, we just went back and looked at this. Biden's town hall did 14 million. Trump's town hall did, I think, 10.9 million. Huge numbers over all of this. And so the question that many people are asking, given the backlash against CNN for hosting the Trump town hall, is whether or not making that deal with the devil was worth it if the long-term ratings gain isn't there, and perhaps you've ruined your reputation with some of your longtime viewers.
I mean, if you're like me and think it was not a deal with the devil and you should absolutely be covering the guy who is very likely to be, at least somewhat likely to be the Republican presidential candidate and somewhat likely to be the next president, you should absolutely cover him. You should do things exactly like this. Now, I would have done it somewhat different, as we've talked about in many other segments. But no, you just have to do it. You can't shy away from covering the news. Then I would say, yeah, okay, you got a numbers boost. That's to be expected. Right. And
but I mean, I think, in all fairness, the question isn't. I mean, for some people, the question is whether they should have done it. But there is an additional question, which is, you should have done it, but did you do it right? Did you do it in a way that got news value, where you actually got, Trump to respond to the answers from the people in the crowd that were Trump voters?
Yeah, nobody except Chris Licht thinks they did it right.
I think that's right. And there were some things that he said in his briefing to the staff where he congratulated them for making news, and some of the reporters were pushing back, saying it's not our job to make news, we're supposed to be reporting on the news, and are there some perverse incentives happening over at CNN? I think that's a fair question.
So I don't agree with that. I think they are supposed to make news. I don't think they substantially did make news during the interview, is what I would say. We mostly retread very familiar.
They made the wrong kind of news. They made a media story instead of a politics story.
Well, they made it a story. They made news in that they made it a story about themselves.
Right,
they shouldn't do that.
Exactly.
They should make news. Yeah, this was interesting, this debate on social media. There was a lot of people actually on both sides, even probably some people in our camp being like, well, the job is to, well, AOC said this too, but then a lot of people were saying this. Their job is to cover the news, not make news. But by make news, what we mean is their job is to get you, is to learn some new truth.
Yeah,
you get some
information.
Answer out of Trump that you hadn't heard before. Get him to weigh in on something new, and that's making news, and that would have been valuable. We almost down the line retread familiar ground with the election stuff and January 6th, with his positions on a lot of other things. With she tried to get, will you agree to recognize the winner of the next presidential election regardless? And he said, well, I will if it's a fair election. And then they went back and forth on that. Like, what? This is not helpful. This is a waste of time. Yeah, and he's never going to say anything other than that.
And to the extent that there were some new things that started to come out, I think there was some weird kind of tiptoeing around whether or not he would withdraw from Ukraine or cut the military budget and stuff like that. He wasn't pressing those kinds of issues. He seemed to recognize that it was politically disfavorable for him to co-sign the idea of a federal abortion ban, and there was some pushback on that, but not a solid answer from him on whether or not he would, let's say he wasn't asked the question, would you veto a federal abortion ban if it came to your desk? So we have no idea what he actually feels about it. He just kind of said, well, it's good that the states have it, and I did a good job getting Roe overturned because now anti-choice groups have leverage. So I do think that there was a much more potential for real substantive newsmaking in the good way that
Ron
was not
DeSantis supports an abortion ban at this level. Do you think that's a mistake, and what should the Republican Party do?
Right.
And then he lays into DeSantis. That would have been making news.
Right.
But they didn't do that.
Right. No, it became a media news story about whether or not Trump is sexist to Caitlin Collins, or whether Caitlin Collins did a good job, or whether CNN
That's making the wrong,
exactly.
Making the wrong kind of news. Making yourself, the network, the news.
Yeah.
Which is not something that serves the interests of democracy, or I don't even think it really serves viewers particularly well, and it causes all this media infighting. So interesting to see the decline. So the numbers, you remarked this before we started this segment. All of those numbers seem kind of small and insignificant. I mean, I guess it's unfair to compare. That's the number of people tuning in live to a broadcast.
Sure.
People don't tune in live to us, but over the course of a day, over the course of 24 hours, we have almost 1 million most days people who will watch our commentary on one of our videos. And it's not an apples to apples comparison, but and there are other people on YouTube bigger than us. So it's for all the attention cable news gets, it's just serving a smaller and smaller audience.
Is that an argument for Tucker Carlson's new Twitter show?
I think so. I think that will be something a lot of people are watching. And as I've said before, I think it will have a substantial impact on the tone of the discussion about how to regulate social media. I think it will, is right now there's a lot of bipartisan interest in doing it. I think Republicans will back off it substantially because a lot of the proposals they're discussing are ones that would actually impact Tucker and Elon Musk in this exact way, if implemented, the whole Section 230 change, to make social media sites more liable for content. That's something that both Democrats and Republicans want to do right now. We'll see how that holds up. I should write something about this week in a longer. I might actually do a radar on it. I know we haven't done radars in a while. We've been slacking. We just have so much news to bring you. We don't have time to do it, but we will be bringing them back soon. So
all right, I'm looking forward to it, Robby.
All right. Well, we will continue discussing this. Of course, we love to bash some cable news competitors and their piddly audiences. More Rising right after this.